and welcome to So You Think You Can Dev, a KMS debrief on all things digital. Today we will be talking about test automation. Where is the human in that process, and where is the technology, the software that works behind the scenes? Today we have Coty Rosenblath, the CTO of Katalon, joining us. Welcome, Coty.
Thanks. Great to be here.
Do you want to give us a little bit of context
Oh,
on your
sure.
background?
Yeah, so I'm Coty Rosenblath, as she said. I'm the CTO at Katalon. You may know us from our Katalon Studio flagship product, which is a development environment for test automation for quality engineers, as well as our test ops platform for test management. And I'm looking forward to talking with all of y'all today about test automation.
Awesome. Yeah, test automation is your bread and butter, so very excited to get your insights. We also have Jeff Scott, our Chief Delivery Officer from KMS Technology. Welcome, Jeff.
Hi, Addie. Hey, Coty. Good to see you again.
Yep.
My name's Jeff. I'm the Chief Delivery Officer. I've been with KMS around 6 years. Spent 24 years at State Farm Insurance and a lot of time in testing and test automation during my time at State Farm. And I get the luxury of seeing a lot of testing challenges, test automation challenges with our existing clients, and look forward to sharing a little bit about how we solve some of those problems for our clients.
Awesome. Thank you both. Before we dive into our questions, just very, very important, very topical information that we need to know. How do you guys take your coffee?
I generally didn't drink it black or a cappuccino. So my daily process is I usually have one or two cappuccinos and then straight black coffee through the morning. So a lot of caffeine and just a little bit of milk.
I'm on the cappuccino train too. What about you, Jeff?
Uh, Mostly, if I get a coffee, it's going to be an Americano, tall blonde, and then it's tea choice after a coffee.
Awesome. Love it. Love it. Okay, so let's dive into test automation. Let's kind of start with the big picture. So what does test automation mean for software today, kind of from both a legacy system perspective and for some of the new emerging technologies that are coming into play?
Yeah, I'll dive in, but I'm really eager to hear from Jeff as well. I mean, for us at Katalon, we're obviously very focused on test automation, and what we see our customers wanting to getting out of it, is the ability to memorialize the things that they know work in a system right now. So, right, there's exploratory testing that goes on with new features, but there's just a lot that as a system develops, you want to sort of lock in and know that this feature works this way and that it continues to work as you deliver release after release after release. So the big thing that we find our customers looking for is just confidence that they are delivering quality software as they continue to iterate on it, because I think everybody is under pressure to deliver more faster. And I think AI is only increasing that, and we'll probably talk about that a little bit. And I usually am thinking about functional automation, which is where we come in, automating browser, mobile apps, API testing. But then there's a lot of automation happening, in the code with unit testing. And then there's also, automation of all sorts of non-functional testing with accessibility and performance and all that. So like, we could go in a lot of directions, but I'd love to hear from Jeff.
Now, the thing I step back and think about when Addie, you asked about, what does it mean for like legacy and what does it mean for new systems, and at a macro level, legacy systems are complicated. They're huge. They have a lot of mess and technical debt potentially that it is hard to untangle. And what automation can do for systems that are like that is give you the comfort or the confidence that you can make changes in a very complicated environment more safely. Without it, you're shooting in the dark as to whether your change is going to break something or not. But if you're able to automate pieces of a very complex legacy system, you have the confidence to be able to go more quickly and safely making changes to that system. From a new application perspective, one of the things that automation gives you is the ability to move at the speed of light and address customer changes as quickly as they come to you in more of a continuous delivery, continuous deployment type of model. And really, it should be the standard. It should be the benchmark that every new product has fully automated tests built in from day one, so that you don't have to think about it. It's every change is fully tested every single time.
Awesome.
Yeah.
How do you
Sorry,
gonna
I love that Jeff really dug into the sort of greenfield new software versus legacy software distinctions, particularly because, most software that's out there is legacy software, and legacy software is generally the software that's, delivering real value, that's delivering
Yeah.
revenue right now. And it's easy for us to get enamored of, what we can do with something de novo, where, it's fresh, clean, greenfield. We're gonna, put test automation in from the very beginning, versus a complex legacy system that is built up over time, that has, requirements that, are hosted in a number of different systems, that usually, or at least often, is comprised of multiple different systems, sort of wired together to run your enterprise or your business. In those cases, we feel like, functional testing, black box testing, gives you the opportunity to, again, lock in what you know about the system, so that you can start to change pieces to evolve over time. So I think it's really important that people think about that distinction. Like, not every system is going to be brand new. You may not even have access to the code for some of these legacy systems to really embed a lot of low-level unit testing, and you may really need black box testing to look at it from the outside. And that's something we see a lot of our customers wrestling with.
Gotcha. So that sounds like it could be a pretty big challenge for legacy technology to make sure that they're testing in all the right ways. And Jeff, you mentioned there's some risk if you don't have that test automation in place. You might lose product quality. So that's one challenge. What are some other challenges and opportunities that are occurring in the test automation space today?
One thing we see in our market, and it's something we're addressing as we evolve our test ops product, and that is, and this is going to get a little bit away from test automation, because what we see is nobody, and Jeff may correct me here, but almost nobody has fully automated all of their testing. And it
True.
makes sense, right? For a host of reasons. One, test automation takes time, right? It's writing code or creating code, just like writing those features is. So it's not going to happen immediately. You need to have someone involved in, understanding the feature and then implementing the tests. But also, these things are happening so quickly that you need to have humans involved early on to sort of figure out what really needs to be tested. So, getting back to where I was going, what we're seeing is customers want to have a unified view of all of their testing, both automated and manual testing, so that they can, again, get the confidence that they know where their overall testing plan is. And they want to be able to move from manual to automation as things do solidify. So maybe you have people doing exploratory testing very early in your product development, and as features stabilize, you lock that in and into automated testing. So in our test ops product, we're giving you the ability to create those manual test scripts early on, and then convert those into automation scripts as things stabilize. And I think that's going to be, we already are seeing the ability to sort of apply AI to that transition and really help people with both the initial creation and that conversion. So that's something we see customers wrestling with, and that we think we're able to help with. How about you, Jeff?
Yeah. No, those make a lot of sense. They resonate pretty well. A couple other things I'll add on to that. One is, a challenge with automation is there's this perception that it's really, really expensive, and it's going to take a lot of time, and it's going to be, it's a lot of maintenance, a lot of upkeep. And there is a return on investment for automation. And you've got to go into it with your eyes wide open, knowing that it will cost something up front for the tooling, for the infrastructure, for the people to do the testing. But there's a definite savings in the end with, um, uh, less defects in production, less manual test hours spent, quicker time to delivery. All of those things are quantifiable. So it's important to, a challenge, headwinds for automation is just the perceived high cost, but you've got to counter that with a good return on investment calculation. Um, the other thing that I think is really challenging for automation in testing in general is, and Coty, you alluded to the speed of change. Things are going so much more quickly today than they ever did when I was testing 20 years ago. You've got companies that are deploying not quarterly and monthly. It's every week, every day, maybe even every hour. And automation tests, if they're not designed right, could break, could or not function correctly or give you false positives or false negatives. So the beauty and the opportunity, I think, with automation moving forward, and a couple interesting things, I know they're part of Katalon's tool suite too, is the use of AI to help with what's called self-healing tests, which means if it sees something that's not quite exactly right, it's smart enough to be able to go in and figure out what is right and correct the script to make the test pass or make the test perform the way it's supposed to. The other is the use of AI to interpret the massive amounts of data that comes as you add more tests. You're adding more data to the pile of things that you can assess and evaluate and see trends. And AI is really, really good at churning through massive amounts of data and gleaning out insights that a human is not going to be able to do, within a normal course of a day, and find those minute things that could be very valuable for the team to be able to adjust. So using those two things, I think, are a couple of great opportunities among many others that AI will help us in the test automation front.
Yeah, I love your talking about the return on investment and the, I think, worry that we see that, are we going to be able to get value out of automation? Because we know, like I said, it does take some time. It takes some investment. And I think we've been, particularly effective at Katalon in terms of creating a tool in our studio product that works the way, particularly manual testers, but the way quality engineers sort of expect things to work.
Hmm.
And has a, there's a barrier to entry, right? You've got to learn some things, but I think it's very low relative to a lot of the rest of the market, and lets you, apply people who have experience in your business to the work of automation, because that's the combination, right? It's not, is this the best, engineer and scripter in the world, or is this the best business person in the world? You need someone who understands the requirements, who understands your business, and can translate that understanding into test automation for you. So we try to give you the best of both worlds there. And then Jeff's exactly right in terms of, some of the ways that we see AI being able to help even further. So we for a long time had self-healing so that we can recover from changes to user interfaces. But AI is letting us go even further now, because now these new large language models and even multimodal models that understand images as well as language are even better able to interact with a system the way a human would, right? Because that's been the challenge in automation for the longest time, is you needed to be able to explain to the automation, how does this look to a computer? What is the locator for this button? What is the X path that gets me there? Versus, press the start button.
Point and click.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's what your manual testers knew, is click this button, fill in this field, look at the name of the field, and that's it. Now we're getting to the place where software can do that. And I think that's going to unlock a lot of opportunity. It is unlocking a lot of opportunity already.
I think you both are kind of touching on a point that seems pretty topical right now. I think generative AI has brought on this bigger conversation of where is the role of the human, where is the role of the robot? How do you see that playing out in test automation?
Yeah, I was thinking about that before we got on because I was using some AI to get something done, um, as I do almost daily these days. And I was going through what I think we're all going to go through, in particular, what I think people working in test automation are going to go through, which is getting the AI to give me an outline or a starting point for what I want, but then interacting with it as a human who knows what is going on. So in my case, for example, I was trying to query some data from GitHub for some information about our development organization. And the AI system that I was working with gave me a script really quickly that would ostensibly do what I wanted, but it didn't know a couple of things. It didn't know that I wanted to look at my org rather than my personal repositories, and it didn't know about, or it did know about paging, but it didn't think that it needed to do it. So you're going to need people, and this is a very specific example, but even in test automation, you're going to need someone who can fine tune these scripts as the AI generates them and make sure that they are, in fact, getting to the heart of what what you want to test. Jeff mentioned earlier, you don't want to get false negatives, you don't want to get false positives. AI can be very prone to doing those things, right? Because if you don't prompt it in the right way, and I'm sorry, I try not to anthropomorphize too much when I talk about AI, but it very much wants to please you. It wants to fulfill the request, and it may do that by making sure a test passes in a way that you don't expect, right? So you need to be able to look at it and say, no, that's not a pass, right? Or vice versa, that is not a failure. So people are going to be in the loop. We see a future where systems are running, tests are, some of them are being created directly by these AI systems. We have a product called True Test that looks at your user behavior and actually generates testing from it. We imagine a future where those tests are just executing all the time, but when they fail, someone does need to take a look at the result and say, oh, is this a real failure? So then we can lock that in and we can ignore that in the future and say, yeah, that's a real failure. Or is this something we need to change in the test? So I think a lot of people have said this, but we see a place where quality engineers get to sort of take a step up and apply their broader understanding, again, of the business and the technology to ensure that you're able to deliver reliably.
Yeah. No, and I completely agree, Cody. I won't belabor everything you said because I think you're right on the money. The thing that I'll add there is one of the things, when generative AI came out, ChatGPT came out, a couple of years ago, there was the worry that developers' jobs would go away. There's a worry that testers' jobs would go away. There's a worry that lots of jobs would go away. And I found it not to be completely true. It actually elevates those that are in these jobs to be able to do their job faster and better and with higher quality, and things to just go much, much quicker throughout the entire life cycle of requirements, design, development, and testing. Um, the other thing that is going to be true as well is the AI, as it becomes more um, I don't know, personable, becomes a little more able to react like a human would. Um, it will take over a little bit more of what humans can do as far as perspective of testing and those kind of things. But I don't think it will completely eliminate the need for a human to evaluate, is this a good test or a bad test? The tests are going to be, a black and white, but there's a lot of gray in how users use the system and the appropriate business context, and I think that's always going to be the case. The last thing that I think AI will be able to do and this is more of a general statement, but there's this level of detail and granularity in the data that a human is just not able to comprehend all of that data and process it and say, there's a trend here, there's something there's some insights in here. That's where I think the AI is going to be able to quickly enable humans, us, to find those things and react to them, or proactively deal with something that could be a problem in the future. And you've got AI systems that are out there evaluating for security vulnerabilities in systems, looking at performance and networking problems and potential needs for enhancements, or to address a potential problem from a maintenance standpoint. That stuff is already out there and exists, and it's going to get more and more prevalent in all of our roles. And I think our job as humans in this environment is to see that as a partner and as a tool for us to be able to go faster and better.
Yeah. One thing that we've seen that's been really useful is we have a feature already that looks for common error results, right? So when your tests fail, or when you have an exception, to look at those and cluster them together. Now with large language models, we're able to, like you said, sort of look at that data in even greater aggregate and say, like, can we see like a common theme, right? It's more than just clustering. It's looking at the actual semantics of the errors to say, oh, these errors all have to do with the billing system, right? Something is wrong in the billing system. You ought to go look at that. And again, that lets you level up and quit looking at like every single error that happened in your last test run,
Mm-hmm.
and look more at like, oh, I now that I look back, I can see we just changed that rule in billing. I didn't think about how that affects, these 10 tests. We need to go back and fix that.
Yeah.
And then, getting back to like where humans stay in the loop, uh, there's a article that came out in CIO that's been making the rounds the last couple of days, uh, taking issue with, how much faster people are able to create code with Copilot and other tools versus how many bugs are coming in with those tools. And I'm skeptical. Everybody's got their own goals for an article like that. But I do think that we are faced with both more code being able to be generated faster with these tools. And I think it's just inevitable that when that happens, there's going to be more to test, and there are probably going to be more failures to check. And then finally, one thing that struck me as Jeff was talking is a place that humans are going to definitely remain needed is to test the behavior of the AI, because there the test is, how does a human perceive this? Like, is the response the AI giving something that makes sense to a human? And we run into this. I joke with one of my most senior engineers who's been working on a lot of this, that to some extent we feel like we're sometimes having to sort of psychologize for these LLMs, because we find behaviors that, after we reflect on them, we realize that they are nuances of language understanding and meaning that we wouldn't normally have to deal with in terms of software, right? Usually we have definitive, is this number greater than that number? Now we've got to do a lot with meaning and statistics and distributions, and that necessarily has to be outside the AI model itself, because it's what do humans think about this? Is this a human answer?
Yeah, interesting.
No, it's very wild.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, all of this is very immediate. I think to your point, we're seeing these effects now. We're trying to kind of wrangle AI in some ways to do what we would just intuitively do. What about the next 5 to 10 years? What do you guys predict is coming?
These things always, yeah, I hate answering these, because what I always think is like, in 2014, what would I have predicted anything like this? In 2019, would I have? So I don't know that my 5 to 10 year predictor is that great, but I think in the in the probably not too distant future, all the things that are going to happen are are just more of kind of what I described. We're going to use AI for, generating more code faster, because almost none of us live in an organization that is content with where it is. So everybody wants to do more, wants to get features out faster. What we think at Katalon is a lot of that is being offered to the development team, to the side that's creating functionality. We feel it's really important for us to get similar capabilities to the people who have to test. And to some extent, we think that's all one system, right? That your idea of there being these separate things of development and testing, it should probably be thought of as like one system that is software delivery, right? And sort of like, if you think about the way things used to be way in the past when I started, where you could just compile a piece of code and you sort of knew that it did what it needed to now where we have these big systems that interact with multiple other systems to get their jobs done. I think of testing as sort of that compilation step. It's checking to make sure that all these things are working together. And I think that AI will give us the ability to manage that, right? I'm not sure it's going to make everything, rainbows and unicorns and magical, but it'll let us keep up with the pace of change that's only going to get faster. In terms of like specific things that I think will change it in terms of prognosticating, I'm looking forward to advances in multimodal models. So models that understand both the visual and the language domains, because I think in particular for test automation, that's going to really let us unlock the ability to interact with systems like a human, because the system will be able to see like a human and interact with the system and understand the system like a human. And then I think that, over the years, we're going to understand where the edges of all these language models are and how to harden those with other sorts of AI or traditional programming, so that we don't have to deal with the vagaries of hallucination and just sort of weird behavior. I don't know if that's definitely not 5, and it's definitely not 10 years out, but that's what I see happening over the next year, 2, 3 years. What do you think, John?
Yeah, I think what we used to say, 10, 15 years ago is 10 years out. Moore's law has taken over, and that's, it's exponentially quicker now because the pace of change and technology change is continued to skyrocket. We're now working with single models and single, let's say an AI agent maybe, to do things. I think in the near future, this is probably 6 to 12 months out. If, there's instances of it today, but multi-agent type of models where you've got an agent that works in the deployment, you got an agent that works in the testing, you got an agent that works in development, and we're starting to feed it instructions and they feed off each other and they do things as a unit. I think that will be part of it. And I think the way that we interact with models, the way that we interact with these tools will change, and where it's us less on keyboard and us maybe saying, hey, there's this application out there, here's the URL, write me 10 test cases that test this from this kind of user perspective. And you can speak it and it just, it happens for you. And then you are able to interact with that set of scripts, in a very interactive way. I just think the way that we interact with the tooling is going to become more like interacting with another human versus us interacting with code. My general prognostication for, maybe 2 years, 3 years out, 5, 10 years, who knows?
I like what you're saying about the user interaction, because I do think there's a lot of work to be done there, and these sort of ensembles of models and systems working together, because I think to some extent, I hope we see AI maybe not be as prominent in systems as it is today. Like I don't know that we'll necessarily be chatting all the time with the AI, but hopefully it will be operating behind the scenes, and we may interact with it in very lightweight ways, like saying, maybe it gives me a recommendation for a new test or a recommendation for uh, a new branch of investigation in my manual testing, and I just accept that and move on. I don't think I think a lot about sort of old systems where if you think about old airline reservation systems where the user knew all the commands and was typing everything in on the keyboard. Um, People don't really want to work like that all day, and they'd much rather
Yeah.
have a system that's working for them and that you know they sort of have minimal interaction with, and I don't want to have to talk to you all day if you're just my QA system. So I look forward to our figuring out how to have some of it blend into the background and just be doing work for us, and then raise our things to our attention when we need to know about them, so that we can get
Yeah.
our human jobs done.
Awesome. Yeah, I think to your point, maybe we can't predict the next 5 to 10 years anymore just because things are accelerating so quickly. Um,
Yeah,
we're in a kind of a new technology boom, it feels like.
I
Uh,
think 100%. I mean, it's amazing how fast we've come when you look back. Um, and what's wild, when Jeff was, I can't remember what prompted this, but I keep looking at how the cost of the commercial services is going down. At the same time, the performance and capability of open source implementations is going up. Um, there's no doubt that all of this is going to get translated into our systems because it's just becoming too compelling, right? There's less and less of a uh, cost burden
Barrier.
and just
Yeah.
more and more capability. Um, but like I said, we all have to figure out how to use it effectively over time too. So we're not having to you be a psychologist for our software systems.
awesome. Well, we are reaching the top of the hour. Jeff and Cody, thank you so much for sharing your insights with us today. Listeners, if you are part of a testing organization at your company, I hope that you are able to get some takeaways that can help you with your approach and strategy to manual versus automated testing. Where's the role of the human versus the bot, and scripts that we can write to make things a lot faster and more efficient. If you are not part of your testing organization, maybe this gave you a bit of insight into why that part of the software development lifecycle is incredibly valuable. Maybe this will encourage you to invest more if you're in a position to do so. All right. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us, and we will have a new episode out shortly. Have a great rest of your day.